Hello, this is James Bryan, and we are on a Grindcast here, and we're doing this in honor of Don't Go in the Woods. And I'd like to caution everybody, if you don't know already, the film business is very difficult, especially these days. So we're going to change the title to Don't Go in the Film Business. There you go.
Let's just go right into the show then. What the hell? James, one of my questions was, where were you born?
I was born in an area adjacent to Houston, Texas. This is as the war was starting. My parents were following work in the defense industry, and so that's where I was born.
And when you were a little kid, did someone bring you to the movies?
Oh yeah, we went to the movies a lot, so I got hooked at an early age. We had several theaters in town, and I used to go to all of them.
How many movies? What was the most movies you saw in one day?
Let's see. Well, it did turn out to be sort of a babysitting thing, and so there were like double features, so at least two double features. The theaters were across the street from each other. We could go from one to the other.
I think I'm so glad that I got to experience double features, at least in the '80s and stuff. So it's just, they were so great, and they really don't exist anymore, outside of repertory, you know, or in the New Beverly or something. Speaking of the New Beverly, uh, how many times have you been to the New Beverly as a guest?
I've been there numerous times. I used to go on a regular basis, at least once a week, and but I moved, so
That's right.
so I haven't been since then.
I forgot about that. You were not just a guest representing your films, but you often, hey, there's James Bryan. He's here as a
Right.
fan, which I
I
think
was I was hanging on. I
I
was a celebrity. I
that's
could have
true.
been a contender,
Did you get
but
involved?
I really like Clu Gulliger. I
Oh
really
yeah,
thought he was great because
wasn't he awesome?
when I was going to movies, that's how I knew when I was before going to UCLA. I knew that if he was in the film, it was going to be a good film because he would get a mention, and so that would excite me.
Speaking of UCLA, were there any other people? I might have talked to you about this before. Were there any people in your class? I know there's a lot of people that came out of UCLA that really rocked the house. Anybody in your class so that you knew where you made films with in college that went on to big things?
Well, yeah. Let's see. Where do we start? My first quarter there, when they were screening the student projects, uh, Ray Manzarek's film was showing, and it was actually a brilliant sort of little film.
I don't have anything.
Do you mean that?
You, you don't understand. Look, don't love me, Dorothy. Not now. There's nothing left for me. Oh, I don't know. I just need some time to think.
And Ray Manzarek was sort of the cool guy on campus, and his friend Jim Morrison was not the cool guy. He was sort of the geek of the class, and that when he screened his films, the tape splices kept coming loose every time they go through the projector gate, and the teachers were all down on him. I felt sorry for him. I didn't know at the time that Jim Morrison would be Jim Morrison, but a year later he was, because that at the end of the quarter, the first quarter that I went there, there was the screening in Royce Hall, and of course Ray Manzarek's film screened, and also a film that uh, Jim Morrison did the camera work on, and it was a nice little film. And um, there was a special event at the screening. There was this silent film, and a new band was formed at the time, and they played on stage to accompany the film screening. And that was the first time that the Doors performed under that name, because before it had been Ray Manzarek's brothers, and they had a band, and Morrison would play with them. So anyway, that's that story. But uh
Pretty awesome.
Pretty great.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
yeah. And Francis Coppola was he just finished You're a Big Boy Now. And so he was at UCLA. He was using that film as his master's thesis film to get a degree, but part of the deal was he would teach writing classes to the students. So I was in his writing class.
How was that?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So we got to do things, go places, and he was doing films at Warner Brothers, several at sort of one time, and that was the let's see, the Rainmakers or whatever, not or whatever that title is, the road movie where he used a Steenbeck in a van and sort of followed the location and looked at the dailies, while they were on the road. Anyway, same time he started Finian's Rainbow and The Conversation and all that year. That was all happening at the same time. And so I went to his classes and had a good time, and saw him at Warner Brothers and while they were doing Finian's Rainbow. And I missed George Lucas though, because George Lucas was running around recording sound for the picture. I think it was I don't know which one of those films he was doing sound effects for, but that's what he was doing.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
Getting back to where when you were a kid, when you were watching these movies and these double features, were you ever thinking, you saw the directed by, hey, I'd like to be a director, or even know what that is?
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, I really liked Walt Disney, so I knew what film was, and I liked the technical side of it. And I don't know if you recall, but Life magazine had a weekly feature about film production and filmmaking. So I was really interested about all of those things. And it was about that time that the family got a set of encyclopedias, Compton's encyclopedias. And I really enjoyed the M volume because that's where it told all about movies, how to make movies, how the soundtrack worked, how special effects work, and all that. So I loved it.
Cool, cool. Hey, James, can you just tilt your hat up just a little bit, or your hat?
How's that?
That's great. That's great. Um, so jumping from when you were a kid, how did you? When did you first think about? Hey, I could direct, or I know that it was like Killer Shrews.
Oh, well, let's see. The movies that I liked were, I really enjoyed Roy Rogers movies and Abbott and Costello and all of that. So I started when I was in high school. I got the 8 millimeter uh, camera out and tried to do some editing. Of course, I was not able to find in this little town I was growing up in. I wasn't able to find a splicer. So, but they did have splicing cement at the local camera store. So I got the splicing cement and a pair of pliers, and I used the pliers to splice the film. Of course, it made sort of a ripple pattern on the film, but that was interesting.
Wow, wow. And what was that first film you made in high school like?
Oh, I got my friends together and we ran around and did scenes, chases, and stuff like that. I really enjoyed silent film, so I started doing that sort of stuff, gags.
Cool, cool. And then at some point you said I could actually maybe make a living. What was that when you were like, were you working on Grizzly Adams or?
Well, I was a pre-med student, but I was at a local college here and doing my pre-med. And all my free time, I would go to the library and look up those old volumes of Life magazine and read about film production back in the 40s and 50s and all of that. So I had got a I'd applied for medical school at University of Texas, and I was not in the first string, the first choice, but I got called up later. But I also had a chance to get a grant in Nashville, so I took the grant money, and it was in the physiology department of the medical school there. So I went there, and that's when I was hanging out with my friends that I went to school with, and we went to um, the bar where all the law students went. They had a big mural of the Scopes trial and all that. And one evening, a friend of mine was saying he really wanted to be a butcher, and he was going to change his major and just become a butcher because that's what he liked to do. And I decided that I was going to direct films because that's what I really like to do. So the next time I saw him, he said no, he had come to his senses, and he was going to keep his physiology work going. But I told him no, I was going to film school. I just needed to know which one. So I there was a friend or a classmate in a class before me in high school in this little town in Texas, and he had been interested in acting, and he was at UCLA Film School. So I got in touch with his sister, who was, still in high school, and she gave me his address, and I wrote to him to find out what he thought the best film school was in the country. And he sent me an article from one of these national papers, um, Christian Science Monitor, and it listed NYU and USC and UCLA. And so I decided UCLA. I didn't want to go to New York, so I thought I'd go to California. So
Good
I
choice.
applied, and there I went.
Wow. And then you graduated, and then what were your expectations after graduating?
Oh, just to be involved in film, however I could.
And so
So,
what did you do first, or where you got paid?
I worked for, let's see, my um, instructor was Floyd Crosby, who was a cameraman whose son was a recording star, and David Crosby. And he got me a job because they needed a cameraman to work on some film. It was a documentary about the Bootstrap project after the Watts riots. There was all these tech companies were, you know, training people to use computers, and so I shot that. That was my first job.
And what was that called? Dead End?
No, that was called Operation Bootstrap, and actually
Okay.
Tim, let's see, what's his name, Carey was the director,
Okay.
and he was a underground filmmaker
Yeah.
and made a few things. He and his wife made films. I worked for him.
It's crazy. You've done so much just supervising sound editing work. It's mind blowing.
Oh yeah, I did a lot of that.
And real quick, did you ever meet? Is it Bill Rebane as Giant Spider Invasion?
Did I ever meet him?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we were working at this sound house called Scott Sound in Hollywood. That's where we met. We were both doing pictures there, and I had some music which was like 50s rock and roll, sound alike, sound like hits that somebody had written and recorded, and he needed some 50s music, so we traded. I got his uh, eerie synthesizer space music, and I used it in a few films, and he used my rock and roll stuff. So that's how we met.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And there's the Grizzly Adams, and of course the Child. A Bar was pretty controversial, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I was involved in finishing up the film, doing effects and polishing it out to get it out. And so I had this little um, sound studio, editing rooms out across the street from Scott Sound in the back. And so I would rent out the rooms and get people to come in and do stuff. And so that's how he happened to come there. He needed some editing. So we worked on that.
Awesome, awesome. Just looking a lot of stuff. Oh, you know what's crazy is this movie. I don't even know if this movie's on DVD, but it's not the greatest movie of all time, but it's a movie from my childhood, and I guess I was about 9 years old when I saw it in the theater, and it's Earthbound.
Yeah.
Remember that one as a
That,
bunch?
the Sun Classic film. Ship.
Uh, they were a bunch of aliens, like a family of aliens
Yeah.
on Earth.
Yeah.
Did they have a Winnebago? Maybe I don't know. But there was a monkey.
Yeah.
There was a monkey in it.
Jin Jin! We thought we lost you. Jin Jin! Jin Jin! What's that?
We're not sure, really. We found her on one of the planets we were visiting for our work.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, that we did sound effects on that. That was uh, uh Sun Classics NBC period. They were
Burl Ives.
right. They did a lot of stuff for NBC, and that was one of them.
Man, that movie's. Oh, and Christopher Connolly. That guy. I barely remember that guy.
Which guy?
Christopher Connolly.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's crazy. We'll get back to the questions. Um,
There were so many guys, it's hard to remember.
I know. I know. I know you like the Killer Shrews, and that was a big influence on you. But what other low budget films did you like around that period? I guess.
Oh, that's hard to say that because there were so many. Everybody was making them. And let's see, Gary Graver and that, you know, graduating class of independents. They were across, the Hollywood flats on the other side. I didn't. They came to Scott Sound because that's where everybody did their low budget sound work. But I really enjoyed uh, those films. It was sort of exciting. People were doing stuff all the time.
Yeah, you must have had Gary Graver, Graydon Clark,
Yeah.
John Bud Cardos,
Oh
Al,
yeah.
Al Adamson, all those guys.
Oh yeah.
That must have been that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. There was everybody was going as fast as they could. That was during the 70s and the early 80s, and everybody was really working as hard as they could to get things done, and they were doing them.
That's good. That's good. Hey, Total 360, how many times have you been screwed over by distributors?
Well, it would be how many times I wasn't. I've been helped out and screwed over by the same people. So it's hard to tell, which way you're going at any one time because I did a lot of work in the adult business and worked for Dick Aldrich. And Dick Aldrich was the kind of guy that could easily take advantage of you, but at the same time, he could just as well do you a favor. So it depends on what was happening. So he helped me with a film that I was making, Boogie Vision, also known as the Young Movie Makers, and he got me a lab out of San Francisco because the lab was looking for work in the adult business. And so they gave him a good price. And he just handed me the paper and said, give him a call. So I did. And then when I had finished the film, I was looking for a distributor. It was sort of a different kind of film. And he said, right down the street, two buildings away, there was a distributor did specialty releasing and they could handle it. So they did. And they started getting play dates. I didn't have many prints, but just when we were getting started, Universal decided they were going to release a Kentucky Fried Movie. So they got that company on an exclusive. So they handed my film back to me and said, we can't do it anymore because they were strictly Kentucky Fried Movie Universal.
Since we're speaking of Boogie Vision, it was one of my questions down the line.
Yeah.
What was the genesis of Boogie Vision, and is it your most personal film? I feel like it is.
Well, yeah, it's fairly personal. It was uh, me just trying to pull all my experiences working in the adult um, film market and slapping it on a storyline. So I did utilize some uh, people that were sort of famous in the business there. I did. Everybody used to tell stories about a producer distributor named Bob Cressy. So I lifted a lot of stories that they told about him and used them in the film. And later, when I was finishing the film, he heard about it and he wanted to see it. So I screened it for him and he enjoyed it, even though I did the clean version. So he
Are you
appreciated it.
are you like the lead character in the movie, like this guy that's desperate to, I love my, I don't care if I have, filming the camera.
Well, yeah, I was looking at what people were doing with documentaries and things like that, and Frederick Wiseman and that, and I tried to use a little bit of that um, approach because people were very dedicated to making documentaries and making films of any kind, and so I wanted to get that passion, if you will, and get it on screen.
It's wild though because just the combination of the narrative and then sort of the craziness of sort of like the little mini shorts and things that
Right.
encompass it. That was. I later saw that in movies like The Groove Tube and obviously Kentucky Fried Movie and
Yeah. Well, that's what was happening at the time, the Groove Tube, and um, I used that approach to sell it. I sort of crafted the advertising to make it fit that.
there you go, there you go. What was it like making Hell Riders?
Well, Hell Riders was a lot of fun. Um, Renee Harmon had done Frozen Scream. That's when I was in Salt Lake City, and she found a distributor for it. And it was these two guys who had a what do you call it, a limousine service in in uh, in New York City, and they decided to get in the film business. They were both interested, and that's what they did. They started 21st Century, and Renee's film was one of the first ones. They wanted her to make films because this is right when video was starting, and all the independents were really shuffling. They were trying to uh, put together libraries, and so they could be viable in the video market. And so a lot of guys got together, and these two guys with the limousine um, had to come up with 3 or 4 films in order to join that group. And so Renee was going to make the films. They gave her the contract, and I was supposed to produce and direct with her. And she's quite a producer and quite a director, but we were all learning how to do what we do.
Let me
So,
ask you a question because this is one of the later biker films and movies in Grindhouse. Go through different cycles and phases. There's a good slasher film, a good. This seems later in the period where biker films still viable and why did you choose? Hey, let's do a biker film.
well, because they were getting money from Italian distributors. So they wanted a biker film. So okay, we wrote a biker film, and there was a stunt man who was involved with Renee Harmon, somebody that she came up with, which was a good choice because it was a guy on his way up, and he did quite a job.
Nice. Well, speaking of Renee, don't be offended by this, but well, A, how did you and Renee Harmon meet? And then second, was her accent ever thought of as problematic? I see it as sort of like that's her sort of superpower. That's why we love her is that.
Oh, okay. Well, we met at Scott Sound. She taught acting classes, and she had this idea that since everybody needed to be on film in order to get a SAG card, she came up with this idea that people would put up money for their scene that they needed for the SAG card, and she would put it together as a feature, write a script that would incorporate everybody's talents. And she came to Scott Sound wanting to get a budget and needing cameramen and editing and all of that. And I had the little editing shop across the alley, and he sent her over, and that's how we started. So, all I said was, well, how much money do you have? And I said, well, whatever you've got, we can do it. Just let me know what you've got, and we will work from there. We'll
And was
do
she
it.
was she a name by then, so to speak?
Well, yes and no, because her name was her name is actually Renate Harmon, and there was a German um, actress by the same name. And so she used that a little bit, but when that person started looking for her, she changed her name to Renee, so as not to be confused by the other German personality.
Did she come from the adult world before going into the independent?
No, she was involved in her mother was involved in the film business in Germany, in theater. And Renee married an American colonel, and she started getting the officers' wives involved in acting, and you know, did some ballet performances of her own in Germany. So she was always involved in production, one way or another. But she started doing acting classes, and people wanted to get into films. So she was telling people how to do that. And so she got money for, all of her students put up money to be in this feature. And I think she had $12,000. And I said, okay, we can do this, but this is how we have to do it. So
Was that Lady Street Fighter or?
that was Lady Street Fighter, yeah.
And did you know, like going in, that she was sort of a gimmick to be exploited, so to speak?
Well, she exploited herself. I think the exploitation of Renee Harmon happened much later by people who were releasing the DVDs of her cult work, because she's promotable, because she modeled herself on different actresses like Sophia Loren and things like that. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but I can see it. She would, use the business that they did, and she would adapt it to her own style.
Well, I think she's amazing, but she's also like a comic force of nature at the same time.
Oh yeah, no,
Delivery.
there's nobody like her, or as she was.
Yeah.
But she could she could work amazing miracles in production, and get locations, and get people, and get all kinds of things. And it's just, she would start out, I'm a professor, I'm teaching at this college, and she just didn't let up. And so, of course, her husband had a job at Sunkist, but also at Sunkist was uh, what's his name, Mitchum, and the son, the younger son. And so, going to the office parties, she got him interested and paid his price to be in a movie.
Chris Mitchum.
Chris, yeah, thank you.
Sweet. Um,
Because everybody has a price. So
the Don't Go Back to Don't Go in the Woods, was a part of the famous Don't series, not affiliated. None of these were affiliated. It was once again another trend in the grindhouse
yeah.
thing. Was that title pushed on you from the distributor, and was there an original title?
Let's see. The writer had a script. An agent who knew all of us put us all together on Don't Go in the Woods. And the writer's script was called Sierra. So it was a camping, hiking horror film. And it was very expensive. And I explained to him that I had to rewrite the script, basically taking his ideas and do it so there's a minimum dialogue, and adjust everything so it could be shot in the most economical way. So it was not the film that he had written, but it's the film that we made, because I said, okay, we have a limitation with how we shoot, when we shoot, what we're going to do. So the story was crafted around the budget.
And was that one of the movies that you got screwed on? Did you have?
Well, yes and no, because like everything else, it goes for a while, it dies for a while, and then it comes back. So the same people that helped me also ran away with the money, but then again, they helped me again. After, they helped me get the negative back. So I could keep it going.
Nice, nice.
So, but somebody else made the money, not me.
Hey, what was it like doing the sound effects editing on Police Academy 4 Citizens on Patrol?
Oh, well, that was interesting because I did a lot of that in Salt Lake City. And then when I came back to LA, the people I had worked with in Salt Lake City were busy uh, working in LA because there was a big push. That's when Canon was going crazy and they were making a lot of pictures then. And so there was a lot of post production work.
Yeah,
So we jumped right in.
I saw
It,
Salsa. Salsa's a Canon movie, I think.
yeah.
And wow, wow, my cousin Vinny. Did you
Oh,
meet?
yeah.
Did you meet George Romero?
No, I didn't.
That's too bad. That's too bad. I wanted to ask you, what is sound effects editing? How would you describe it?
Well, when people record the sound, they're basically recording the dialogue. So, and you clean up everything else. You lose everything else that you've recorded just so the dialogue is perfect. But then you have to put it back because when you sell to a foreign market, you have to isolate all your effects and the sounds that the actors may make as they're moving around, the Foley. And you have to put that on separate tracks so you can put another language uh, for the dialogue, and then you have all the effects. They're separated, so they basically remixing again. So you're creating, uh, the sound effects that you need to sell the picture in other markets for other languages.
Did you enjoy doing that?
Yes and no. It was a lot of fun in that, you know, I got to work flat out, which is fun. Work 3 days straight. There are all kinds of deadlines and crazy things like that. And so I enjoyed that part of it, working till I couldn't stand up anymore, you know,
Awesome. Hey, any cool Executioner 2 stories? And was there an Executioner 1?
execution. Well, there was an executioner. It was George Papard, and it was an Italian film. And although that's what Century 21 wanted, their Italian um, money people said, we want a picture. We can sell a picture called Executioner 2. So apparently they had tried to make Executioner 2 and they had, you know, ads and art and stuff for it, but it never got made. So they wanted to use all that and they knew they could sell it in their market. So that's why it became Executioner 2. And they would pretty much say, you know, every other day before they'd send the check, we want a scene like this, or we want this or that scene, or a character has to do this. And so we would write it in and figure out a way to do it and keep it from being deadly dull. So, and it was Executioner 2. The favorite thing that I did, we didn't have much action in the film. And so I would try to come up with anything I could. And there was a hand grenade prop. And so my idea was to have one of the characters the vigilante guy, uh, throw the grenade down somebody's pants, and blow them up. And so watching Netflix, it's become a staple.
See, you
It's
invented
used all the time now.
That's great.
I thought it was over the top, but apparently
You
it's just
didn't
what Netflix needed.
you didn't blow anybody's balls off though.
Well, we didn't see that. It was just we just cut to an explosion.
What's the most violent, maybe accidental thing that ever happened on a James Bryan set? Anybody get hurt, break their arm, fall off a mountain?
Well, in don't go in the woods. One of the actresses really got hurt. She tripped, and and um, another actor tripped at the same time because they were in brush and it was on a hillside, and they were running toward each other, and they crashed into each other. We we took her into the we took her into to the emergency room. She was really sort of stunned, and of course, at the emergency room, they thought possibly she was an abused victim, and
Oh,
they kept trying to get her to whisper on the side if she had been abused or not. But
oh my God.
no, it was all for acting.
Stevie here is convinced that he looks like the lady in the van that goes over the
Yeah.
hill.
Well, when my hair
Yeah.
was longer, yeah. I had a
Oh
longer
yeah,
hair. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
yeah. She was a local stage actress from Salt Lake City, and she was pretty amazed with what happened. But anyway, it was a lot of fun.
I always get a kick out of spitting the fake blood on the glass. Just
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And there
That
was
was one of my favorite.
and there was
So
nobody.
if you can't put a hand grenade in somebody's pants, you can always have the victim spit blood on the window. You know.
That's
Hey
great.
James, what was and it's got to be a feature film. What was the cheapest feature film that you made and got out there into the world on the screen?
Oh boy. Well, with Renee Harmon, we made some cheap movies, for video only, and because she got the idea that you could use bits and pieces of old films and write a new story, which is what everybody did for video. You do 20 minutes of new film and just tell the old story again, and you'd have a new video title. So that was the most horrible experience I had with her, because she just put it together, and I said, okay, we can do that.
It
But
sounds like somebody should do a documentary on Renee Harmon.
I know.
She sounds, just mind blowing. What was
Yeah.
how did you like Masters of the Grind?
Well, I think you did a great job, and congratulations on your first place um, title there,
Thank you. Well,
your recognition. I know
Stevie
you
edited.
worked for decades, and you did it.
That's true. That's true. That's true. We're showing some of it in L.A. next week. Too bad you
Yeah.
can't be there.
Well, I know you guys have been working hard on it, and I'm glad it's paying off for you.
Well,
Because
I don't know about paying, but we're getting we got a 9 out of 10 on Horror Buzz and some good reviews, and we're gonna go to the American Film Market and just wish us luck. Did you ever go to the American Film Market? And if you did, do you have any advice for us?
I used to go all the time. It's a nice place to meet actresses from other lands, because they're
Wow.
There you go. You can go for dates.
because they're working hard to be accepted. So
Yeah,
Wow.
they're willing to go above and beyond.
yes.
That's Orion. That's are you do you have another movie in you? Are you going to make another movie? Can we expect a new Jim Bryan movie?
Well, I may have other movies, and I probably do. I keep coming up with ideas of movies I'd like to make, but I don't have the strength. I might could write a script, but somebody else would have to make it. I'd have to sit in my dark little corner and
Could
ask
you
how is it going?
You couldn't just be on the set like in a chair and just stay in the chair.
I could be on the set, but not for very long. I'm good for about an hour or two, and then
Okay,
I have to rest
I got you. Fair enough.
because I'll just exhausted. I'll go to sleep, because
What if someone allowed you to, you write whatever you want and they'll direct it or whatever? What genre have you always wanted to do but you didn't get a chance to do?
hmm, let me see. I was set to make a film called Evil, Mean, and Nasty. It's like um, you know cage fighting and small time uh, bad news sheriff, and you know taking advantage of itinerant workers and things like that. So it's got to do that. It's got a Native American theme because the cage fighter is an Indian, an American Indian.
What's that called?
Evil, mean, and nasty.
Oh yeah, how could I forget that? That's the greatest fucking title ever. Jesus.
Right.
So,
So we've even got a theme song.
Oh
But
really?
yeah, yeah.
You want to
And
sing?
got a script too. The script it was starting out to be just a regular exploitation film, but it turned pretty dark. But
Oh,
that's the way it should be.
that's true. That's
hey,
true.
if we can raise money for it in the future, we'll let you know.
Oh, okay.
Get it made. We'll get some
We're
money.
trying to get our own about a possessed pelican called Helican.
Yes.
Trying to get that off the ground. It's not easy, but yeah. When I go to LA next week, we're going to shoot a scene for my new movie, Room 666.
Right.
Like no money. We're talking no money. I need a crystal ball and a switchblade and a few more things, and
Right. I understand.
it's I'm trying to get some good looking gals in there, and that's all you can do.
Right.
Rock and roll music.
We already got some boobies
Right.
and some blood
There you go.
and we actually do have a theme song too. It's we'll play it for the viewers. It's an AI theme song. Called
Okay.
Squirrel Monkeys from Mars, which is one of the episodes.
I like it.
You're gonna love it. It's awesome. It's awesome. So I know you don't watch too many movies. Streaming wise, what's the latest thing you saw streaming wise that you liked or that had a dark sensibility?
Well, I didn't mind Atlas that much.
Atlas?
I sort of enjoyed it actually,
What's
but
that?
then again, I liked Anaconda too. So,
Okay.
but
There, there
yeah,
you go.
the movie that I like is Lucy. I really enjoy that. I can
Yeah.
watch it over and over again.
Luc
Luc
Besson.
Besson.
I met Luc Besson. He was kind of an asshole, unfortunately, but I still like his movies.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, what do you say? He's French. What's he going to be?
That's yeah. I guess it makes sense. I was just I don't know. I think he got offended that I when I was not a little kid, but 13 years old, and Steve loves this movie too. I had a Fifth Element when I went to the theater when Fifth Element came out. I got the popcorn bag had Fifth Element on it. And
Right.
I saved that Fifth Element. It was just paper. It was just made of paper. But I
Right.
saved that bag for 20 years. And then Luc Besson, the director's there, and I'm like telling him like I was a little kid and I saw Fifth Element and I love this movie. And he was just like, "You want me to sign the popcorn bag?" Something like that. And I was like,
Oh
"Yeah,
yeah.
man, it means a lot to me." he
Yeah.
did.
Well, there you go.
He did it. He did it. I can't, but
I think he understands. Looking at his films, he knows exactly what you're talking about. But
I mean, look, he can he made Fifth Element, The Professional, and La Femme Nikita, which are three of the greatest action, most fun movies ever made. So he gets a pass. But Jesus, the French are man, they're tripping.
yeah.
It's nuts.
Well, it took him a long time to cross that Hollywood line, but he's well over it now. He could do no wrong as far as I'm concerned.
I don't know. He's made a lot of stuff that I don't like, but he's produced a lot of stuff you know, and he did Lucy, obviously, but he produces a lot of action-oriented stuff that he writes too.
Right.
You know, he's good. He's good. I wish he could go back to the old school of like La Femme Nikita, Fifth Element. You know, he did do a sci-fi movie that was like trying to be like Fifth Element, but it was just
Yeah,
it didn't have the practical effects.
I know.
It was all computer, and you didn't have Bruce Willis, Mia Jovovich, Chris Tucker,
Yeah,
you know, and all that. The whole production of that was amazing. It was great.
I agree.
What was so what happened to Renee in the end of her career?
Well, her husband retired and he moved to Central California and she moved with him. She kept teaching and she tried to do some things with um, video movies, but the market changed. You know, she was very close. We had a deal that we were going to do um, a film, an action film about a private detective who had been a sniper spotter in the Korean War, and we messed around, and everybody wanted a piece of it, and actually nobody was able to do anything. And she actually had a book deal, which is what they wanted, and she had a publisher that was sort of a very iffy publisher, but he was willing to do her book. She was going to do a book about this Tommy Ponder. And of course, Tommy Ponder uh, worked with a lot of people as, let's see, it would, he was the president of the special forces group that met in LA, sort of an independent group. And special forces from all over the world would come there. And he had a little apartment up above this Italian restaurant where they would all meet, this bar. And anyway, he was sort of in charge. And when people wanted to do an action, you know, overseas or, you know, for a corporate entity or for the government or whatever, he was the one who helped put it together. And he used those resources there. And they did it out of that place, out of his little apartment and, you know, over that bar. So anyway, but he got involved in a conflict with somebody who was doing individual work. They were a let's see, a government drug agency person, and they got into a gunfight over over two private jobs. They were had a shootout, and they both just about killed each other. But the guy who worked for the Fed, you know, got the Fed to protect his uh, special status, and Tommy went to jail, and the other guy walked. So
And that's the
anyway,
story of Tommy Ponder.
yeah,
I know
Only
you
in
did
America.
I know you did the sound editing for The Child by way of Harry Novak. Were any of your films distributed by Harry Novak?
not mine. Although he looked at Lady Street Fighter,
That's
but he
right.
passed on it because it was at the end of a cycle of that kind of action, and he decided that he had had enough. So
Did you
he
get
didn't.
did you
He,
get
he
paid for Lady Street Fighter?
uh, I got paid a couple of $1,000. That was it.
That's more than you would have got from Harry Novak.
Right. Yeah, I know.
So you made the right decision.
Yeah, he sat on it for a long time, and I told Renee that I could finish it and get a release, and we did.
Poor Frederick Friedel, who did Kidnap Coed and Axe back to
Yeah,
back for him. He saw Novak's wife and followed him up to some canyon and stopped at his mansion. And Harry Novak said to Frederick Friedel, who was in his 20s and made these two movies, young filmmaker like yourself, and said, "Look at my mansion. Your movies bought me this." And Frederick never made a dime.
Right. Yeah, well, that's who he was. I mean, that's everybody. I mean, that's the name of the game, isn't it?
What a way to just rub it in someone's face, like you're proud of, screwing someone over like that.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
willing
Son
to,
of a
your
bitch.
ego is allowed to. I can't imagine anyone's. I'd
Did you
be
meet
in
his?
federal
Did you meet
prison
his
if that was
wife?
me.
Did you, James? Did you meet Harry Novak's wife?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
No, Harry Novak used to come over to Scott Sound all the time because that's where he did his post production. So I did see him. I did meet him, but uh, Bruce Scott handled all the negotiations for Lady Street Fighter. But Novak just sat on it for a while till he decided, that he would rather wait for the next big thing rather than do another one of those.
did you ever? What was the closest that you got ever to like getting to like the big time in terms of like an opportunity that maybe the would have been like a studio film or something like that? Was there anything like that where you came very close to something that
Well,
maybe?
yeah, I've been close a couple of times, but um, I was supposed to do a Roger Corman film, but it was one of those deals where he has money left over for production.
Okay.
But the money that was left over was at the last minute sucked up by um, Winarski going over budget. So my budget went out the window. And I've found people who were going to put up the money, but the people who were going to put up half, the distributor actually just wanted to run away with the money that I had located. So that didn't work out.
So throughout your career, did you always or ever have to have a job to supplement, to pay the bills, or have you been
Oh, always. I
always?
was always getting a job to support another job.
Yeah.
So somebody was always saying, "Can you do this?" And away I would go.
We appreciate you coming out. You're such a legend, and all your war stories and your fun movies, and it was great to see Don't Go in the Woods in Beverly Hills when we had our festival, with an audience because we were laughing our heads off, and everybody else was, and it looked gorgeous. The Vinegar Syndrome
Oh
DC,
yeah.
Yeah.
it looked sharp as hell, and the sound was great. And eating our nachos, watching a James Bryan film, and we had you do the intro there, so that was great. And so we appreciate everything, buddy, and we'll bring you with us in spirit and to LA next week. And thanks for coming
Okay.
on the Grindcast. We'll see you on the flip side.
Okay.
All right.
I enjoyed myself. Thank you.